Hi, welcome to Elite's ADI lesson guides. Today we're going to be looking at the DVSA learning syllabus. The DVSA expects instructors to be client focused nowadays, opposed to traditional methods of just do as I say and you'll pick it up. Think of your time at school. You were encouraged to be more in control of your own learning and your teacher was present to facilitate your learning. So what matters is not what we teach, it's what they learn. So Alfie Cohn. The DVSA's definition of client-centred learning, taken from the National Standards for Driver and Rider Training, Rule 6, Unit 3. This unit is about helping and supporting a learner to acquire the skills, knowledge and understanding that they need to drive safely and responsibly throughout their driving career. This means that the unit is not just about teaching a learner to pass a test. Instead, it's about developing the learner's competency and their willingness to continue the learning process beyond their test. The competencies which go to make up this unit are presented in 4 elements. However, it is important to understand that the first 3 of these elements represent different aspects or layers of a single integrated approach, an approach known as client-centred learning. It is not really possible or meaningful to attempt to demonstrate these competences in isolation. The 4th element, which is about group-based learning, typically but not always in a classroom environment, shares a client-centred approach. However, it is presented here in a separate element to reflect the fact that some instructors may choose never to work in this environment. Client-centred learning is not about the learner taking charge of the learning process and deciding what is going to happen. Instead, it's about creating a conversation between the learner and the instructor that is based on mutual respect. This approach is based on the idea that people resist taking on new understandings and resist modifying their behaviour if the person who is trying to teach them fails to respect and value their idea of who they are. The person delivering the learning is not seen as genuine. The person delivering the learning is not seen as having a legitimate authority. In the context of learning to drive or ride, the instructor brings to the learning process their hard-earned knowledge, understanding and experience. If they rely simply on telling the learner what they should do, they will probably be able to teach them enough to pass their test. However, all the evidence suggests that learners in this sort of relationship do not change the way they think and quickly forget what they have been taught. There is a better chance of long-lasting change in understanding and behaviour if the instructor presents their knowledge, understanding and experience clearly and effectively, listens to the learner's reactions to that input, helps the learners to identify any obstacles to understanding and change, supports the learner to identify strategies for overcoming those obstacles for themselves. Please download the National Standard for Driver and Rider Training form from the link below. Some people want to learn for themselves while others prefer to be taught. An example of this might be if you had an old car and some spare unused land where it could be driven, and you gave the keys to someone that's never driven before. Some people would try for hours to get the car moving and eventually succeed without any help. Others wouldn't even attempt to try without help. Instructor-centred. An instructor-centred approach means that the lessons revolves around the needs and desires of the instructor. Basically, this means the lesson is led by the instructor. The instructor is following the DVSA driving syllabus and the requirements of the practical test. He or she will be using their previous experience of the practical test as a measure to teach their students to be successful. And with every test, they will learn new information to pass on to their students. In instructor-centred learning, the instructor is the expert who passes on knowledge and information to the learner. The instructor decides on what needs to be covered in each lesson. They set the goals for the student and decide on the amount of input they will give them. The instructor talks and the learner listens. The instructor identifies, analyses and corrects mistakes made by the learner, telling the learner where they went wrong and what they need to do to correct it. The instructor evaluates the learner's performance and gives them feedback at the end of each topic or lesson. Directive and non-directive method of teaching coaching. Teaching a method of directive and non-directive lessons will benefit both instructors and students. Lessons should focus on teaching students the skills required for safe driving for life and not just to pass the driving test. Learners should be encouraged to make decisions for themselves. Then when new situations arise, they have the ability to act and deal with them safely. Being client-centered requires us to accommodate the learner and their learning preferences. But we also need to adapt and use whichever learning method appropriate to get the best outcome at that moment in time. So both directive and non-directive methods of teaching and coaching should be practiced by instructors. The structure of a client-centered lesson. Identify development goals. Prepare. Responsibility agreement. Practice self-evaluation, reflection and debrief. Identify development goals. The lesson begins with you and your learner working together to determine your learner's development goals. Asking an open question such as, what would you like to practice today? Will lead the learner to select something that they want to do, which might not be what your learner needs to do to continue with their progress. So, you're there to help provide a framework. You should be able to help your learner determine which topic is beneficial for that lesson. That could be something new or analysing their current performance so they can consider where they would like to make improvements so that they feel more confident and in control. SMART goals. Specific. Be specific about the student's goals. What do they want to achieve from the lesson and how will they know when they've achieved it? For example, their goal in a moving and stopping lesson might be to steer the car in a straight line without panicking about crashing. Measurable. How will the student know when they have achieved their goal? Scaling can be an effective technique to help them. So if they score themselves a low 2 out of 10 at the start of a lesson, but would like that score to be 5 at the end, they have a way to measure their progress. Achievable. The goals we set should be achievable. An instructor's aim is to challenge their students, but not make it so difficult that it would destroy their students' confidence and put them off learning. Goals should be achievable with the time available and achievable for the learner's existing ability and skill set. Relevant. Having relevant goals to work towards will keep the student's progress on track. Learner drivers may want to cover topics that aren't relevant to the goals they want to achieve. For example, if they want to improve their bay parking but asked to do a mock test when clearly they are a long way off the standard required to pass it. Timely. Set a time over which to achieve their goals. Some small goals might only take part of a lesson. For example, getting more proficient at changing gears. Others may be achieved over a longer period. For example, becoming confident with dealing with busier roundabouts. Prepare the lesson. If your lesson involves a skill or a topic previously covered, you might just need to ask a few questions to establish what your student remembers. You can help them fill in any gaps in their knowledge and explore any areas that they need or want to improve before taking to the road. If you're starting a new topic, then a deeper conversation might be necessary so that they fully understand the topic before trying it for the first time. With some students, you might want to skip the lengthy briefing and move straight into a demonstration or let them learn from experience. Responsibility agreement. Once goals are decided, you and your learner need to agree on the balance of responsibility. Ask your learner how much input they want from you. You can encourage them to take responsibility for certain tasks that they feel confident doing by themselves, but might need help in certain situations. If you're introducing a new topic, they might rather you took control and give them full support until they feel confident to try for themselves. But be clear on how you will give directions. Also make it clear that they can ask if they find something they want help with, and that you have dual controls should they be required. Practice. The balance of responsibility and the input from the instructor agreed at the start might change during the lesson. Not all best made plans go the way they were intended. The learner might be struggling with a skill or situation they were okay with in previous lessons, and the level of input from the instructor will need to change. In this case, the instructor and learner should agree on a new balance of responsibility and the input to help the learner navigate safely through the situation. Mistakes made by your students should be quickly identified, and in the case of potentially dangerous situations, prevented altogether. Mistakes should be discussed between the instructor and the student. In the perfect scenario, the student should be encouraged to identify the mistake and the actions that could result from each mistake. Not all students will want to be actively involved with this process and might become upset or irritated if forced to identify faults committed. In this situation, it is the responsibility of the instructor to point out the cause and effect of mistakes made by the students. Mistakes should be discussed and the effects on us, the car, and any other road users thoroughly explored. Together you should decide how the error will be fixed and agree on the appropriate action to fix it. The student should also be actively encouraged to decide on how much responsibility they want to take and where they would like help from you for the very next time they encounter that situation or one similar. Obviously, this might involve repeating the route again or finding a route with similar situations for practice. It is believed that the more actively involved the student is in a lesson, the better they'll learn to become a more responsible driver. Not all students will respond to being actively encouraged to identify mistakes or find a solution to fix them, which is where the instructor will be required to lead the lesson. Instructors should adapt lessons to suit each student. You will be in the car with many different personalities. Some students will relish the chance to pull up their sleeves and get actively involved, while others will shy away from communication and look elsewhere. For optimal learning, it's important that you consider each of your students' learning preferences. Debrief. The debrief is a chance for you and your student to reflect on the lesson. It's good practice to encourage your student for their feedback on their performance. For example, what did they feel went well? What parts of the lesson they felt positive about? What areas within the lesson they would like to improve? Based on this information, you can agree the goals for the next lesson and introduce new topics that you both feel will be a good time to move on to. You can also ask them if they would like information that will reinforce what they have learnt in the lesson or help them prepare for the next lesson. This could be in the form of handouts or videos, etc. So if you'd like any more information on this particular topic, please email kev@elite-driving-school.co.uk, or you can give me a call on 01482 44 443. Thank you.